Well, so this sure is one interesting midterm election result, isn't it? Looks like it's the first presidential term, midterm congressional election in 20 years that's ultimately defied expectations. Last time I remember something like this happening, where it's 2 years into a new president's first term and his party didn't get a shellacking of sorts at the ballot box, was 20 years ago. I remember in 2002, the Republicans racked up some pretty impressive victories in both houses of Congress, but that was an exceptional election year as well because of 9/11. The main thing on most American voters' minds was national security. This year, in a way, it parallels that because thanks to the overturning of Roe versus Wade by the Supreme Court, and maybe to some extent the election denialism and January 6th and all that nonsense the GOP has pulled, that has put enough of the electorate in a mood to punish the GOP that it was able to offset the effects of what otherwise might have been the red wave that so many, and particularly so many Republicans, were predicting.
Red wave rising.
We're going to see a red tsunami.
It's going to look more like deep impact, the tsunami at the end, but colored red.
And all the data is telling us that a Republican wave is building across the country. The generic congressional ballot, you see the movement in the Senate races, you see the movement in the House races and the governor's races.
The polls show Democrats sinking and Republicans rising. Democrats blew every lead they had. Smart Money says Republicans take the Senate, winning the majority by 53 seats to 47.
The red wave that's coming is going to be like the elevator doors opening up in The Shining.
The Democrats probably should say, you know what? We put too much emphasis on abortion and the threat to democracy and not enough emphasis on kitchen table stuff. Abortion and democracy were the two of the biggest issues with voters.
But I wanted to react to the reactions of CNN and some other journalists when they finally officially called the Senate for the Democrats, saying the Democrats would actually maintain their majority in the Senate.
Projection in the high-stakes battle for the United States Senate. CNN now projects that Democrats will keep control of the United States Senate, holding on to the majority they narrowly won 2 years ago. This is an extraordinary victory for the Democrats as the battle for control of the House continues to play out. We are making this call because we can now project that Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto will win re-election in Nevada. Cortez Masto defying expectations and beating back a very strong challenge from Republican Adam Laxalt. Once again, CNN projects that Senator Catherine Cortez Masto wins re-election, sealing the Democrats' control of the United States Senate for another 2 years.
We should just note, though, that December 6th runoff in Georgia now, it's an entirely different race. Right. Battle for control of the United States Senate is not going to hang on that. It's going to be a little less engaged, probably not as much money spent. Not that it's not important to the people of Georgia, and not that Chuck Schumer would rather have 51 than 50 and not have to go to Joe Manchin for every single thing, right. Or a power-sharing agreement with Mitch McConnell. So it has ramifications. It's important, but without control of the Senate hanging on Georgia now, that will become an entirely different race. 100%.
I've said this before, 50 seats out of 100 is not a majority, y'all. It's half.
Wait, did you go to school?
Now, yes, I know. They call it a majority because when there's a tie vote, Vice President Harris can step in and cast a tie-breaking vote in the Democrats' favor. True that, but that's a big if. And again, like I've said before, bottom line is you don't know that whenever there's a high-stakes vote going to come up, that things are going to go the Democrats' way and all 50 Democrats in the Senate will stay on code, toe the party line, and vote with the administration, thus giving Vice President Harris the opportunity to cast a tie-breaking vote in their favor. Sometimes that'll happen, sometimes it won't. And if there ever was a period of time that should have taught Democrats and everyone else, or the politics watchers and the media and so on, that lesson, it's the last 2 years. The Democratic base has been fit to be tied for the past 2 years over Manchin and Sinema's at least purported obstructionism, not supporting Build Back Better, not supporting the John Lewis voting rights bill, not supporting getting rid of the filibuster in the Senate.
I heard that you asked Vice President Harris, who's the real president here, Biden or Manchin? Did you ask her that question? What did she say?
Nothing. She didn't really give an answer. But I mean, as you can see, it still seems like President Manchin is currently running this country. And I think that was, in hindsight, when you look, people thought I was being harsh by asking that question. But now it's like, well, damn, who is running this country? Is it President Biden or President Joe Manchin? He has a lot of
power for one person. That's
Absolutely.
True.
So how can y'all now be so quick to say, oh, the Georgia runoff race, it doesn't matter as much anymore. It's become a different race because the Democrats have a Senate majority now. The last 2 years should have taught you all that winning a measly, and I say that word and I'm going to say it again, a measly 50 votes in the Senate is not, repeat, not gonna cut it, because any number of issues may come up that will prevent Democrats from being able to go as far as they want to go, given that at least some members of their Senate caucus are still relative moderates, like Manchin, like Sinema. And this is a mistake both parties make whenever they win an election, no matter how narrowly or strongly they win it. They always want to spin the results in their own favor as much as possible. Now, to some extent, that's just politics. True. Politicians in general tend to do that. But ultimately, they should have more sense than that. And I think people in the media should be the main ones to call them to account and talk some sense into them. Where is the media observer to tell them, hey guys, back in 2005, when George W. Bush tried to partially privatize Social Security, when his party had strong majorities in both houses of Congress, the damn thing never even really got off the ground, because most Republicans recognize the perennial reality in American politics that Social Security is the third rail of American politics, as they say. Touch it and you'll get fried, you'll get electrocuted. In 2010, the Democrats got the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, passed, but they had to water it down to some extent in order to get relatively moderate senators like Joe Lieberman and John McCain to sign on to it. By that point, Joe Lieberman wasn't even technically a Democrat anymore. He had been primaried out of the party in 2006, although he still managed to hold on to his seat as an independent. He was one of those who said, I'm not going to sign on to this national public health insurance program, what they used to call a public option back then, because I think it would cost taxpayers too much money. So even with powerful majorities in both houses of Congress, as well as the White House, the Democrats still couldn't get everything they wanted. Fast forward to 2017. Trump is president now. When he was elected, I thought, and I said it right here on this channel, that I thought Obamacare was done for. Clearly I was wrong, and shame on me for being so previous, so hasty to draw that conclusion. Because look what happened. Trump took office, started making all these noises about repealing and replacing Obamacare. Didn't happen. Why? Even with his party, again, controlling both houses of Congress, a number of them, again, including John McCain, just weren't willing to go that far because they knew what a price they'd pay for it at the ballot box. So after us just more than a couple decades now, almost a quarter of a century now, of those kinds of political results, how could Democrats look at the results of the last election in 2020, where they only barely managed to win a measly 50 seats in the Senate, only thanks to those 2 Georgia runoff election victories, and still think that they somehow had a mandate or the numbers in Congress to bring about bold, transformational, fundamental change? You can't do that with only half the seats in the damn legislature, even if your vice president has the power to cast tie-breaking votes. Not in America, not in a country that has separation of powers, not in a country where the executive branch doesn't have the power to punish members of their own party in the legislature who don't toe the party line, the kind of thing that happens routinely here in Canada. So, I think that while it's true, yes, technically the Democrats are in a stronger position. They're in a leadership position, you could say. In the Senate, that only preserves the status quo. That's what's been going on for the last 2 years anyway, and Lord knows that hasn't produced entirely satisfactory results, at least not for the Democratic base. So why is this something to celebrate? Y'all wanted, I'm sure, and still want, to win a genuine majority in the Senate, and so far you haven't quite pulled that off yet. Georgia will determine whether you actually win a real majority, and that will in turn determine whether Joe Biden has to play ball with Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema and any others who decide to get real moderate all of a sudden. If, and I think this probably will happen in the end, if Warnock pulls off another win and beats that freak show of a candidate, Herschel Walker, then the Democrats can crow about having a real Senate majority, and then they'll really be able to get a thing or two done. But you can't win just half the seats in one of the chambers of the Congress, and as still remains likely, lose your majority in the other chamber, in the House of Representatives, and still expect to get your way. So, Democrats in Georgia, don't sleep on this. Don't listen to all these pundits and talking heads who are telling you, Democrats got the Senate now, we can all stay home. Not we can all stay home. They have the sense not to say that much. That would be absurd, but still in all though, don't let yourselves slip into complacency. Don't feel like you have some kind of laurels to rest on now, because you don't. You need that extra Senate seat. Really? In American politics today, as narrowly as the country is divided, you need every damn seat you can get. And the same goes for the Republicans too. So, Georgia Democrats around the country who want to do whatever they can to support Raphael Warnock, get off your duffs and keep working harder. Work harder than before. Work harder than you've worked up to this point, because getting the kind of reforms you want to get done in Congress, especially with the Republicans still probably poised to win a majority, however narrow, in the House of Representatives, more than ever, you're going to need some substantial Senate numbers, at least when it comes to things like Supreme Court appointments and reforming the Supreme Court and things like that. Peace out.